All right, today we are diving into a really provocative argument from some top health researchers. And get this, their basic idea is that we should start treating sugar like we treat alcohol. Yeah, as a controlled substance.
So let's just start with this number because it's staggering. 35 million. According to the UN, that's how many people die every single year from chronic, non-communicable diseases. Things like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, that kind of stuff.
And this points to a massive shift. I mean, think about it. For the first time in all of human history, these chronic conditions are killing more of us than all infectious diseases put together. And this isn't just a rich country problem anymore. Any nation that's adopted that cheap, processed, Western-style diet is seeing the exact same thing happen.
So what is really at the heart of this global health crisis? A lot of people's minds go straight to one thing, obesity. But the source we're digging into today argues that's just a symptom. It's a marker for a much deeper issue.
Okay, this is a really key distinction we need to get. Obesity isn't the disease, they argue. It's a marker for the disease. The real problem is something called metabolic syndrome. And the really wild part is that you don't even have to be obese to have it. Up to 40% of people at a normal weight are suffering from the exact same underlying problems.
And that brings us to the main culprit that these researchers are pointing their finger at. And no, it's not fat, it's not salt, it's one of the most common, most beloved ingredients in our modern diet.
Now, to be super clear, we are not talking about the natural sugars you find in, say, an apple. Nope. We're talking specifically about added sugars. The sweeteners with fructose that get dumped into food while it's being made. Our consumption of this stuff has tripled around the world in just the last 50 years.
So here it is, the core of their argument. Added sugars are not just empty calories. The claim is that sugar is actually a toxic substance, one that's so dangerous to our collective health that it needs to be regulated by the government, just like we do with alcohol.
Now, I know what you're thinking. That is a huge claim. So, to back it up, they don't just give their opinion. They actually apply a standard, by-the-book, public health framework, the same one that's used to justify regulating things like alcohol, to see if sugar really fits the bill.
And this is that framework. It's called Baber's 4 criteria. For any substance to even be considered for regulation, it has to check these 4 boxes. So let's walk through them and see how sugar stacks up.
First up is unavoidability. I mean, think about it. For most of human history, sugar was this rare, hard-to-get thing. But today, it's been added to pretty much every processed food you can think of. Bread, salad dressing, ketchup, you name it. It makes it almost impossible for people to avoid, even when they're actively trying.
Second criterion, toxicity. And this right here is the scientific gut punch of their argument. When you look at the long-term health effects of drinking too much alcohol versus eating too much fructose, the outcomes are, well, they're spookily similar. Both can lead to high blood pressure, liver damage, all of it, which kind of makes sense when you remember that alcohol is literally made from fermenting sugar.
Third, we've got the potential for abuse. Sugar messes with our brains. It hits the reward center, and it actually interferes with the hormones that are supposed to tell us when we're hungry or when we're full. This creates this vicious cycle that can just compel us to eat more and more and more of it.
And finally, the fourth criterion, negative impact on society. Just look at this number, $150 billion. That's how much the U.S. spends on healthcare every year just for the diseases linked to metabolic syndrome. And that's not even counting another $65 billion in lost productivity.
And the impact on society goes even further. For example, the U.S. military now has to turn away 3 out of every 4 people who try to enlist because of fitness issues tied to obesity. It's gotten so bad that top officials have actually called it a genuine threat to national security. So, okay, if you accept the argument that sugar meets all 4 criteria, what would regulating it actually look like? Well, this isn't about bringing back prohibition or anything. Instead, the idea is to borrow from the playbook we've already used for tobacco and alcohol.
But first, you have to understand the challenge, right? And this quote from the source just nails it. The market forces are all pushing in one direction. Companies have basically zero incentive to change this on their own. So the proposals focus on controlling the supply, not banning it. Things like 1. Adding taxes to processed foods that have added sugar, especially sugary drinks. 2. Limiting where and when you can buy them, like getting them out of school vending machines. And 3. Controlling the marketing, maybe even putting age limits on buying these drinks.
But let's be really clear about the tax idea. The research suggests a little 5-cent tax isn't going to cut it. To actually get people to change their habits and consume less, the price of something like a can of soda would probably need to double.
So we have to ask the big question.
Is any of this actually realistic? I mean, could these kinds of massive, widespread changes ever really happen in the real world?
Well, of course, it's not going to be easy. You're talking about an uphill political battle against an extremely powerful and well-funded sugar lobby that's going to fight any kind of regulation, tooth and nail. It's a global fight, and it's especially fierce in developing countries.
And yet, there is a reason to be optimistic. Just take a look at this list. Every single one of these things, smoking bans, designated drivers, airbags, was once a huge knockdown, drag-out political fight. They were all seen as totally radical ideas once, but today, we just see them as common sense.
And that leaves us with one final, provocative question. Public health has won these kinds of fights before, against powerful industries and against just plain old inertia. The question these authors want us to ask ourselves is this: is sugar the next battleground for our health?